Hello, people of the tube. Haha. It's another day, another walk, another chat. Yeah, I figured, well, it's nice out. We might as well just walk and talk and give you guys something else to look at instead of just me and my ugly mug, like I said before. Pickle! Hey! She's crazy. She's running like a fool. Anyways, so today, again, I'm reading this book here, this Daily Reflections that I used to read all the time when I first sobered up, and then I quit. And then, because I'm working with these young people at this new meeting here I started in Grandview, I started reading it again. And now I remember why I read it every day, right? Because it really gets you thinking about life and about where I'm going. And now that I'm so many years sober, I mean, I have a different outtake on all this stuff, right? So I'm going to read it again, just like yesterday, and then we'll just discuss it a bit. If you guys have any comments or anything, or if you have the book, it's Daily Reflections. You get it from the AA online store from wherever you are, whichever state or province, or wherever you're from, even in the UK, doesn't matter, worldwide. So let's have a listen here. So the spiritual health, May 23rd. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. It is Alcoholics Anonymous, page 64. Pickle! Anyway, it is very difficult for me to come to terms with my spiritual illness because of my great pride, disguised by my material success and my intellectual power. Intelligence is not incompatible with humility, provided I place humility first. To seek prestige and wealth is the ultimate goal for many in the modern world. To be fashionable and to seem better than I really am is a spiritual illness. To recognize and to admit my weaknesses is the beginning of good spiritual health. It is a sign of spiritual health to be able to ask God every day to enlighten me, to recognize His will, and to have the strength to execute it. My spiritual health is excellent when I realize that the better I get, the more I discover how much help I need from others. So yeah, so spiritual health, and I'll just face it this way for a while, you guys, so that, you know, maybe you get a better view of things as we're walking down the trail. You can walk with me. So spiritual health, right? That's something I was missing, of course, when I was in my addiction. When I was young, I went to church a lot. And I actually really enjoyed church. I enjoyed the camaraderie, the community that came with it. Our church was very small. It was well, we started off in a school gymnasium, bleachers, and then after a few years of that, we got a church, a mobile home, basically converted to a church, donated to us to use, and a piece of land that we rented from the town of Selkirk, and we placed the church there, and we had it there, I'm sure a good 10 years or so we had it. And during that time, we were a real community. And we went tobogganing after church, and we went to Pizza Hut. Pickle! Hey! Sorry, guys. And we went to Pizza Hut as a church. And we went to people's houses for meals and potlucks at church. And we went to the beach in the summertime. Pretty much every Sunday after church, almost the whole church would go to the beach. Every family, we would go to the beach. Wasn't very far away, about 45 minutes away. My favorite times were about 5 years. We went on canoe trips for 2 weeks. And we went into eastern Manitoba, which is the Canadian Shield. And we paddled into Ontario. And there was no roads. There was no campsites. There was no nothing. Pickle! There was no campsites. There was no nothing. There was just us in a canoe, right? And there would be, I'd say 10 canoes, and there'd be 4 people in each one. And we would have pancakes. We had a great time with our canoeing. And we were a real community. We really helped each other. We talked to one another a lot. We did amazing things together. And then again, when I was a teenager, probably about 14, 15, I'd already been drinking and smoking weed because my family life was pretty off. But the church decided, well, what happened was some of the wealthier people in Selkirk started to come to our church. And they decided, because they got on the church board, that it'd be a really good idea if we built a new church. And so that was the focus. So the canoe trip stopped, the community stopped. It became this fascination with as much money as we could raise to build this church. And that's where everyone's focus was, right? And once we built the new church, the wealthier people were saying to the rest of us working class families that we weren't contributing as much as them, and we had to contribute more. And they were feeling burdened because they had to contribute more than us. And it started this. As our reading just said, it started this lack of spiritual health. Right? Everything was for money. Everything was focused on the money, and it wasn't focused on the community, and that was built up around that church. That the reason that church thrived the way it did was because of that community. And I got disillusioned. I stopped going. I completely stopped going. I remember I started slowing down how much I went, and then probably at 15, I just said no more. We went on the last canoe trip. And we went on, and they said no more canoe trips, and there was no more going to the beach. There was all of that was gone. And my parents wanted me to keep going, and I just said no. I said, the people in that church have lost their way, And my parents couldn't really see it because they were caught up in the money too, right? Because my parents worked a lot to try to get us into a better position, right? To try to build us up. But all that did was make it where me and my little brother didn't have parents, right? I was a latchkey kid, and so was he. And so we never had parents. And that's sad. We didn't do much as a family. We didn't go camping very much. We didn't. We went a few times, but we, again, that family, that community in the family was gone. And it is because of money and because of work and basically humility, right? The humility to say, hey, we don't need the big fancy house. We don't need brand new cars. We don't need all that stuff. We're happy just having the basics in life and working forward from there. And so that's what the church lost. The church lost its humility, right? It got caught up in the money and more, bigger, and it just lost itself, right? And so it was saying that's what happened when I was an addict, right? I lost myself into the addiction. The addiction became the number one goal in my life, and that's all that mattered, right? I lost all my friends, my family, my community, anyone that was close to me. They left, man. Even the other alcoholics, they had enough of me because I was too much of an alcoholic, right? I was just too much. And the addiction part, like too much drugs, like it just, I did an awful lot of LSD when I was young, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever. I shouldn't be upset about it because whatever, it was what it was. And cocaine and all this, and all this money I spent on the addiction, right? That should have been spent on making my life better, right? Like, that's what it should have been spent on. But the humility it took me to create, to ask for help, right? This was that first step. And so we have to have that humility to ask, to realize that we're a mess, right? That we need help, that there is something wrong, that it's not just going to get better. We have to actually do something about it. We have to ask for help, right? And so that's the humility. And the spirituality is we have to be willing to, like I had to be willing to forgive the Creator, right? Because it wasn't his fault that the church fell apart, right? He didn't do anything to create that. It was people's lack of humility, right? And they lost themselves. And that's what caused the church breakup. I blame God for the longest time for that, for allowing that church, because that was my home, that was my community for many years, from 9, 10 years old and up, right? It was a great place to be. But once it lost itself in the money, right, in building this new church, it wasn't a good place to be anymore. So once I lost myself into the addiction and my humility was gone and my ego took over, I was no fun to be around, right? My life was no fun because it was all addiction. And so we have to come to that conclusion as in sobriety. We have to say, hey, I messed up. I did these things. I've created this problem in my life. And I really need to step back here and ask for help. And really just accept the help that I get from the group, right? From the group. And so again, whether it's a counselor or it's a treatment center or it's both, or you go to AA or you don't, or NA, I mean, you just have to find a group of people or some people to support you through that change back to the humility. And once you get that humility, then you can get that spirituality back, right? Because now you can accept the Creator or God back into your life, the God of your understanding, right? I call it the Creator because the Creator of all, right? And that's what I believe in. So it's getting that humility back. It's getting that understanding back that that's what we need to do, right? And now that I have that connection, right? That connection with the higher power, with my higher power, right? The Creator. Now that I have that connection, whenever I'm in deep doo-doo, right? Whenever I'm having struggles, I can ask the Creator or the higher power to help me out of that, right? Before I used to rely on me. I used to rely on me all the time. I was the only one that could do it. I was the only one that was good enough. I was the only, and that's the ego, right? And we need to get past that ego to get sober and straight. We need to get past that ego so that we can have that amazing life that we want. Right? I'm actually in control of very little, except for how I work with what I'm given, right? So how I respond to the situation I'm put in, and you know it's very it's humbling, right? But it actually cuts me a lot of slack. It makes it easier to be me, right? Because now I'm not. It's not my responsibility for all this other stuff, right? What other people do is not my problem, right? What people do or say is not my problem. If it rains, it's not my problem, right? You know, when I had my business before and it was raining, and the homeowner would be phoning me, oh, when are you going to get this done? When are you going to get this done? I mean, I'd be making all kinds of excuses and blah, blah, blah. But here, really, it's the weather. And I have no control over that weather, right? And instead of me just saying that to them, well, you know, I'll get there when it dries up, when it stops raining and it dries up, and I can work on your house. You know, I'm going to do some interior jobs now. And as soon as it's nice enough, I will come back and finish your siding on your house, you know. Instead of that, I would create all these excuses, you know, thinking that it was my fault, right? And it wasn't. Right? So now that I have that connection with the higher power, and I can ask for the help, you know, through my life, in all my aspects of my life, right? It makes things so much easier, right? When my addiction was in full swing, I was responsible for everything and everyone, and it's just not so. I'm not that special. I'm not that powerful. I am just me, right? And yeah. So the spirituality, I'm going to emphasize this again. It doesn't matter what your spirituality is, right? You can be a Christian, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew, you can be Asian and believe in Buddha, or like, I don't even know all the Asian gods or the Indian gods. There's a bunch of them. Or, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? You just need to know. You need to be able to humble yourself to say, it's not all me. Like, I'm not in control of anything but me and how I react to the situation. And it relieves a lot of stress and a lot of pressure off you. And it just makes life easier. And yeah, spirituality, man, it's really important. And I'm going to quit babbling, because why babble when all I have to do is talk about it a bit and let you guys think about it, right? Please leave questions and likes and subscribe if you want. This is Chris out. Have fun, Tube.